Vladimir Putin and Emmanuel Macron discussed the issue of Syria's civil war. Their phone conversation comes ahead of Mr. Macron's upcoming visit to Russia in May. Mr. Macron's office has said that the French leader pressed for more robust Syrian peace talks while on the phone to Putin. The French president reportedly urged his Russian counterpart to stop intolerable degradation of the humanitarian situation in regions of Syria that have been devastated by Russian airstrikes, according to a statement from his office. In a statement, the Kremlin said Mr. Putin and Mr. Macron had an in-depth discussion of the prospects for a political settlement in Syria. They pointed out their interest in promoting inclusive intra-Syrian talks in Geneva based on UN Security Council Resolution 2254 with due account for the results of the Syrian National Dialogue Congress, which was held in Sochi on January 30. They also discussed possible assistance to Syria's post-conflict rehabilitation. Western countries are frustrated with Russia's continued support for President Assad in Syria and airstrikes which they say are aimed at moderate Syrian rebels. Russia has always said it only targets terrorists in the region. Both leaders also discussed the conflict in Ukraine and stressed the need to enforce the 2015 Minsk peace agreement that was sponsored by France and Germany, it has been reported. Friday, January 19, 2018, President Putin plunges into the icy waters of Lake Selaga. The pair are also understood to have spoken highly of the work of the Trianon Dialogue Russian-French Civil Society Forum. The Trianon Dialogue initiative is aimed at encouraging interactions through joint theater productions, school trips, sister city agreements and real estate investments. A Kremlin statement continued, the two presidents exchanged opinions on current issues of Russian-French relations, including preparations for Mr. Macron's visit to Russia and his participation in the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in May this year. When speaking about trade, economic and investment cooperation, Vladimir Putin updated his French colleague on the results of his recent meeting with French business leaders. Emmanuel Macron has remained publicly committed to the sanctions placed on Russia by the youth presidents. Praised the Trianon Dialogue Civil Society Forum, which is gaining momentum and now includes a digital platform. However, despite the existence of the project, Mr. Macron has remained publicly committed to the sanctions placed on Russia by the EU. Among the Russians overseeing the Trianon Dialogue are magnate Gennady Timchenko, who is a longtime associate of Vladimir Putin, and former Russian Railways chief Vladimir Yakunin. Both Timchenko and Yakunin are targets of U.S. sanctions over Russia's actions in Ukraine. Also involved in the Trianon Dialogue is a former Russian ambassador who has expressed support for Putin's bombings of Syria and his annexation of Crimea. None of the French members of the project's board are politicians. News of the most recent phone call between Mr. Putin and Mr. Macron has come after late last year they both agreed to team up to try and ease escalating tensions surrounding Iran's nuclear capabilities. At the time, Mr. Putin and his French counterpart spoke on the phone to reaffirm support for the implementation of the Iran nuclear deal.